I just wanted to do a quick video talking about Nietzsche in response to Theo Warner's video. Because one of the things that I think he implies in his video, he doesn't, I think, fully explicate, and there might be some confusion surrounding it, and I just figured that I'd like to say something. One of Nietzsche's points, right, in specifically in the genealogy of morals, but in Nietzschean philosophy in general, is that our whole culture has been shaped by Christianity or Judeo-Christianity, right? Um, our specifically for Nietzsche, our ethics is what he's interested in, or morality is what he's interested in. But the whole the conversation about morality that people in the West have been having for the past, you know, 2,000 years has been shaped and formed by Christianity. So the fact is, if I say I am an atheist, right, someone can say, well, that means that you merely reject a single proposition. And you know what? Maybe that's true. But at the same time, in rejecting that proposition, that means that I can't accept a whole constellation of other propositions, right? I can't accept arguments that are made on theistic grounds exclusively. And the development of ethics for Nietzsche took place in the crucible of Christianity and Christian thought. And I agree with this point, actually. I agree with the point that our thoughts about ethics have been dominated by Christianity in the past 2,000 years. So what Nietzsche suggests is what he calls the revaluation of values, right? Which is to say, if I reject the existence of God, then since our ethics has been shaped by Christianity, that means that we have to reevaluate all ethical claims, right? And we need to reevaluate how those ethical claims are legitimated. And this means a lot of things for Nietzsche, but I would extend this out further, and I think Nietzsche would as well, though his focus was on morality. Our whole culture has been shaped by Christianity in dramatic ways, again, for 2,000 years. So, in saying, I disbelieve in the existence of God, then all of a sudden, that statement can't exist in a vacuum. The statement, I am an atheist, cannot simply be the rejection of that idea. And the reason why is because the second I affirm that, then I'm presented with a whole range of questions about the culture within which we inhabit, right? The whole culture, the whole experience, the language that we use, all of these things need to be analyzed and taken apart in order to actually escape belief in a God, if there is such a thing. In order to remove remove any belief that may solely rest on the existence of God, right? That involves very fine cultural analysis. It's not just well, here's this epistemic idea. Here's this claim of this empiricist claim of you have no evidence for God and therefore God doesn't exist and that's the end of the fucking conversation. No, that's the beginning of the conversation, if anything. And so I want to tie this to William Lane Craig and his moral argument, because I think that there's an interesting parallel. And I've suggested this to Theo before. William Lane Craig's moral argument, one of the ideas behind it is that, well, actually, it's more in line with Frank Turek. But Frank Turek has this idea. He levies the allegation against Hitchens in their debate with one another, You have to sit on God's lap to slap his face, right? You need to assume the existence of God in order to criticize the existence of God. William Lane Craig makes the same point in his moral argument, right? In order to affirm morality, you need to affirm the existence of God without realizing it, right? And in some sense, I want to say that there might be something true to that, right? There might be some truth in that. But what that would suggest to me, if you could show that moral statements rest on the existence of God, it doesn't faze me. It doesn't show anything about the existence of God. What it shows is that our moral language has for 2,000 years been formed within Christian thought. Not exclusively, of course, but generally has been formed within Christian thought, our ways of thinking about ethics, etc. The language that we use to articulate them. For instance, evil, right? That word is a theological concept. It's not a material concept. So, like Christopher Hitchens, for instance, says, agrees with that somewhere. I don't remember where. He agrees with that, and then he says, but I just can't seem to do without the word, right? I just can't seem to do without the concept of evil, even though it is essentially a theological concept. So this is what I want to get to, is that first of all, theism isn't just the affirmation of one claim. Theism is a discourse that has, I don't want to say infected, that sounds pejorative, but it's shaped so much of our discourse. That in rejecting the existence of God, you can't just throw up your hands and say that you're done. This is a primary reason why I think that it's reductive and downright silly to say that atheism is the rejection of one claim. It might be the rejection of one claim, but it's also the acceptance of a burden of a certain horizon of questions. Like now that we disbelieve in God, how do we talk about ethics? Sam Harris has tried to do that. I don't think that he's gotten out of Christian ethics, actually. That might be an interesting subject for a later video. And I've said before that I think that the morality proposed by the new atheists is just a reformulation of Christian ethics and a naturalizing of Christian ethics rather than something new. So Theo's point about the death of God should be as momentous of event as the birth of Christ. What this means, and Nietzsche says something similar. What this means for me is that you need to, once you accept that God does not exist, once you accept that claim, then what follows is an overhauling of the entire culture in which we inhabit. That's the work that has to come with the acceptance of that claim. And a re-articulation and a re-inscription of the culture that we inhabit. So, if rejecting the existence of God, like I say, you might disagree with this, I think it's just obvious, self-evident, that saying I disbelieve in the existence of God comes with the burden of this project to re-articulate our culture, etc. If that's true, then what Theo's point is in the Nietzsche video is that the new atheists have gotten off light, right? They have done however much work in saying, they've done work in saying God does not exist and religion is bad for the world. Like, that's basically the two claims that the Four Horsemen put out into the world. But then that's the end of the argument. And this is what it's meant by saying they purchased their atheism cheaply. what doesn't follow there then is a finely tuned uh, cultural analysis to see the 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 level, the depth at which Christianity, in particular Judeo-Christianity in general, monotheism and more general theism in a larger circle. Um, what hasn't been done is to show how that influences our culture in unnecessary ways, um, in ways that are mutable, in ways that are unsustainable without the existence of God, and then the refiguring of that, the refiguring of our discourse in light of that analysis. Like, all of that comes with the statement, I disbelieve in the existence of God. Right? Because if you want to say that all an atheist is someone who disbelieves in the existence of God, well, alright, like, I'm an atheist, which just means I disbelieve in the existence of God. So, therefore, I believe the world was specially created 6,000 years ago. Like, it obviously that statement is not sustainable once you accept the disbelief in God. There's all sorts of things that become unsustainable. So yeah, I'm rambling now, but that's my central point is there's much more to theism that must be overthrown or is rendered unsustainable by the statement I disbelieve in the existence of God than the new atheism is willing to take on as a project. And that's the point. That's why the new atheism has purchased their atheism cheaply.